I stood on the train platform in Vermont, holding my ticket and a paper cup of coffee that had already gone cold. Across the tracks, the trees blazed in gold and red, exactly what I pictured when I planned this trip. It was meant to be a gift, a 40th wedding anniversary getaway for my parents. I paid for everything, planned every detail, even timed it for their favorite season. When I handed my ticket to the agent, he frowned. "This ticket's already been scanned," he said. I stared at him. "I'm sorry?" He showed me the scanner, as if that would make it clearer. "It was checked in this morning, passenger already boarded." "That can't be right," I insisted, but even as I spoke, a heavy knot twisted in my stomach. My phone buzzed. A text from my brother, Brian. "Tiff really wanted to see the fall colors. You hate crowds. We thought it made sense." I stared at the message, then at the train as it pulled away without me. I didn't call or reply, I just stood there, holding the coffee I no longer wanted. In the middle of the trip I had designed for them, and now, apparently, for her. Tiffany had my seat. Tiffany, Brian's girlfriend of 6 months. The same girl who once filmed a TikTok using my toothbrush as a prop. And me? I was never really part of the picture. I was just a placeholder, quietly erased. The worst part wasn't that they left without me, it was that no one even thought I might care. All my life, I believed being dependable was a good thing. As a kid, I was the one who cleared the dinner table without being asked. The one who brought home straight A's while Brian coasted on charm and late homework. When Dad lost his job the year I turned 16, I started working at a diner and handed every dollar to Mom without question. She called me her little rock, and I wore that like a badge of honor. Brian was always the baby, the one who just needed time. He crashed the car twice before 20 and never paid for repairs. When he got a C in microeconomics, Mom cried with pride. "He's trying so hard," she said. When Brian got into community college, I bought his textbooks. When he dropped out, I helped him get a job. When he lost it, I co-signed his lease and paid when he couldn't. He moved in and out of my guest room more times than I can count, always with a new excuse. Tiffany was just the latest chapter in his endless free ride. I never complained. I made good money as a systems analyst. I kept telling myself I was helping. That's what good daughters do. Besides, if not me, then who? Mom never directly asked me to pay. She had a way of gently pushing me into it. "Your brother's doing his best. Honey, it's hard out there. You're lucky to have a steady career. Not everyone is as responsible as you." She never really thanked me. It wasn't presented as a favor. It was just expected, part of who I was, reliable, strong, always there. And over time, it felt easier to just keep being that person than to ask why no one else had to be. I didn't plan this anniversary trip to prove something. I did it because they once told me they honeymooned near the Berkshires, because Mom's eyes lit up every fall, because Dad still kept an old Polaroid from that trip in his drawer. I thought that maybe, if I gave them something beautiful, they'd finally see me, not just what I could do for them, but me. But standing there now, I realized they saw exactly what they always had, not a daughter, but a solution. It started as a small idea scribbled on a yellow sticky note, "Saw Berkshire's October." I wrote it in the margin of my work planner after Mom mentioned that old honeymoon in near Lenox, with creaky floors and maple syrup on the windowsill. That afternoon, I started researching. Within a week, everything was set: scenic rail passes through New England, 2 nights at a historic inn with vineyard views, a private dinner at the same restaurant from their honeymoon. I even upgraded their room to include a fireplace. I wrote on the itinerary card, just like before. I didn't plan anything fancy for myself. A small roadside motel room, coach train seat. The whole trip cost nearly $9,000, including travel, meals, activities, and a bouquet of fresh asters and goldenrod for their dinner. I rearranged my work calendar for 6 weeks so I wouldn't miss deadlines and used my PTO carefully. Brian wasn't supposed to come. Mom had said he'd probably be busy with some freelance thing, usually code for sitting at home while Tiffany filmed TikToks. I didn't question it. In my mind, it was going to be a quiet trip, a chance for them to breathe, and maybe for me to remind them I was there, that I still cared. It wasn't about earning love anymore. I had stopped chasing that a long time ago, but part of me hoped this would finally be the memory that stuck, a story they'd tell at Thanksgiving, a photo they'd frame and maybe send me, a small moment that would break through the distance. It was never really about the train ride or the fancy inn. It was about the table I set, the effort I poured into every detail, the quiet hope I still carried that maybe this time, it would be enough to finally belong. But in the end, Even that wasn't enough to earn me a seat. A week before the trip, Mom texted. Tiff said her fall content would look amazing up there. Brian thinks it'd be fun if we added them. Is that okay? No mention of how they'd get there, where they'd stay, or who would pay, just the assumption that I'd handle it, like always. I stared at the message for a long time before replying. If the rooms can still be adjusted, I'll try. That was it. Not because I was upset yet, but because I knew how this game worked. Every new request wrapped in fake casualness, always framed as spontaneous, and somehow, it always fell on me to make it work. That night, I checked the inn's reservation page, almost fully booked. I found one small, overpriced room nearby and snagged it. Then I emailed the train company to confirm seating. Our cabin held 4. More people meant a new car and new logistics. I asked them to keep our original reservation. I didn't hear from Mom again. No follow-up, no details. The family group chat went silent. A few days later, Tiffany posted an Instagram story, brown leather boots on my living room floor. The caption read, "Can't wait for fall adventures." She didn't ask to use my space. Something inside me tightened, but I let it go, like I always did. Even as I felt the unease creep in, I told myself it would be fine, that I was overreacting. They wouldn't leave me behind, they wouldn't. When the train finally pulled away, I stayed on the platform. The sky was wrapped in pale mist, the trees swaying softly, as if they didn't notice the hollow ache spreading in my chest. My suitcase sat next to me, untouched, pointless. No one called, no one texted, not Mom, not Brian, not even a quick sorry. I wasn't an oversight, I was the inconvenience they chose to exclude. And Tiffany? She got my seat, my view, the carefully crafted itinerary I had spent months putting together, the one they never asked for but eagerly accepted. I didn't cry. I walked across the street to a cafe, ordered another coffee I didn't want, and sat by the window watching strangers leave for places I hadn't planned for them. I opened my phone and saw Brian's post, Mom and Dad on the platform, arms around Tiffany, all smiling. The caption read, "Family fall getaway, finally making memories together." That extra together felt deliberate, like a final, quiet erasure, as if they'd found their perfect picture now that I was gone. I didn't comment. I didn't like it. I just locked my phone and stared at the table, running my fingers over the scratches like they might offer comfort. They didn't forget me, they chose this. So I made a choice, too. Instead of going home, I rented a car and drove north. No plan, just a memory of a quiet town I'd once passed through alone on a work trip. Brattleboro, small, tucked into Vermont's folds, smelling of pine, a place where no one asked questions. I checked into a roadside inn with a fireplace, overlooking a gravel path lined with sugar maples. That evening, I sat by the window with a blanket over my knees and a mug of chamomile I barely touched. For 2 days, I didn't check my phone. When a few texts trickled in, none from Mom, just a group text from Brian joking if I'd mixed up the schedule, I left them on read. Instead, I wandered through orchards shedding their last red leaves, browsed dusty antique shops full of things no one needed. I bought a postcard I didn't write on, tucked it into a book, and forgot about it. I let the quiet settle in, heavy and clean. For the first time in years, I didn't have to explain my silence or hold space for someone else's mess. I didn't have to soften my edges, dismiss my own pain, or tell myself I was too much. I was alone, and it didn't feel like failure, it felt like truth. The trip I planned was gone, the people I planned it for had chosen their story. Now, I was choosing mine. I got home late Tuesday. The sky was low and gray, a quiet that felt like the whole city was holding its breath. I dropped my bag by the door and didn't unpack. Out of habit, I opened Facebook. Mom had posted again, dozens of photos from the trip. She'd tagged Brian, Tiffany, even the bed and breakfast. Not me. One photo stopped me, the dinner table I'd reserved months ago, candles flickering, my flower arrangement in the center, my handwriting faint on the place cards. Tiffany sat in my seat. The caption read, "Grateful for our children who made this anniversary so special. Couldn't have asked for a more loving weekend." I closed the app. The next morning, an email arrived from Mom and Dad's shared account. Subject line, "Photos from the trip." No message, just photos attached, like I was a distant relative who missed a wedding. No "we missed you," no "where were you?" Just proof of their perfect weekend. That's when I realized it fully. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't an oversight. It was the family they chose. The next day, I drove to the house, my house, the one I bought. maintained, and paid every bill for the one they lived in rent-free. They weren't home. I moved through each room slowly, guest towels faded, kitchen full of someone else's leftovers, Tiffany's raincoat draped on the banister. In the dining room, the same one Mom once called hers in a birthday toast, I realized something simple but sharp. They weren't renters, they were takers, and I was done giving. The lease adjustment notice went out the next morning, 2 copies, one on the kitchen counter, one sent certified mail. It was clean, no venom, no personal note, just numbers and dates, rent at market rate, utilities no longer included, guest privileges revoked unless approved in writing. Deadline, 1st of the month, no explanation, I didn't owe them one. That afternoon, Mom called. She didn't start with hello. Lauren, what is this? Are you actually charging us rent? There was no confusion in her voice, only wounded entitlement. This is cruel, she went on, we're your parents. I paused before I answered. Then maybe you should have treated me like your daughter. She scoffed. So this is about that trip? I said nothing. We didn't mean to hurt you, she said, trying to soften, it just happened. I heard her footsteps moving through the living room, the old floorboard by the front window creaking under her weight. Your father's upset, she added. But Robert hadn't called, he hadn't texted, I wasn't even sure if he knew, or cared. You could have just talked to us, she said. I could have, I said, but I chose this. You're not serious, she said, her voice rising. I am, you have until the 1st, I said quietly, after that, it becomes legal. She hung up. I stood at the kitchen sink, staring at the faucet. I didn't feel angry or triumphant, just steady. The house no longer felt like mine, but it wasn't theirs either. Once a gift, now, a line. 3 days later, an email arrived from a local law firm I didn't recognize. Subject, intent to dispute ownership. Inside was a scanned letter claiming long-term financial contributions and shared occupancy, arguing for partial rights to the house. No real numbers, no supporting documents, just vague threats dressed up as legal language. I forwarded it to my attorney. He called almost immediately. There's nothing here, he said, it's all noise. But it wasn't just noise, it was a message. They weren't sorry, they were retaliating. The next evening, Brian showed up at my door. He looked worn out, as if he hadn't slept. His usual careless confidence was gone. Tiff left, he said, standing on the front step. She didn't sign up for this family drama. He didn't ask to come in, just stood there, waiting, as though the door would open out of habit. I don't have anywhere to go, he said quietly, you know that, right? I did know, but I also knew what would happen if I let him in. I'm not your safety net, I said. He looked down, then up again, his eyes were glassy but dry. I didn't mean to hurt you, he said, but it wasn't an apology, not really. I didn't say anything. Dad never called, not after the rent notice, not after the legal threat, not even after Brian showed up. His silence wasn't surprising. When I was growing up, his quiet was always there, the backdrop to every argument, every plea, every moment I carried more than a child should. He'd sip his coffee and disappear into the next room, as though staying neutral made him kind. Now I saw it clearly, his silence wasn't gentleness, it was complicity. The day I dropped off the certified notice, he was outside watering the roses. He looked up as I walked past. You don't have to do this, he said quietly. It was the only thing he'd said to me in weeks. I looked him in the eye. I do. He didn't reply, just turned back to the roses, as if he hadn't heard me at all. 3 weeks later, I moved into a small loft across the river, exposed brick, high windows, just enough space for me and my quiet, no footsteps overhead, no doors slamming, no voices asking for more. I bought a second-hand couch, a real tea kettle, a lamp I actually liked. The air smelled of paint and dust. I opened the windows anyway. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for my phone to buzz, no group chats asking for money, no guilt-laced check-ins pretending to be care, just mornings that belonged to me and evenings that unfolded slowly and softly. Brian never texted after that night. Tiffany deleted our photos, unfollowed everyone, and my parents? They went quiet, too. Mom tried once more, a text with no greeting. We miss who you used to be. I replied. You miss the version of me who never said no. She's gone. She never answered. Sometimes I walk past the park near the train station and sit on the same bench where I first read Brian's text. I don't replay it anymore, I just sit. Because that's what peace feels like, not a victory parade, not revenge, just the absence of noise. I used to think saying no would make me heartless, now I know it made me whole. Last week, I booked a train to Maine, no itinerary, no group chat, no anniversary dinner to coordinate, just me, a window seat, and a bookstore I've always wanted to visit. I didn't ask anyone's permission, didn't check anyone's schedule, didn't offer to bring souvenirs. I packed light, one bag, a notebook, a cedar-scented sweater. At the station, I paused for a moment, remembering that morning in Vermont. The sting was gone, only clarity remained. I am not their fixer, not their fallback, not their foundation, I am not their plan B, I am my own beginning. On my bathroom mirror now, there's a sticky note with 5 words I wrote after moving. I owe myself the most. Every morning, I read it like a promise. Some stories aren't shared for pity, they're shared for recognition. If this one stirs something in you, maybe it wasn't just a story, maybe it's a mirror. Was there a moment when you finally said enough? Tell us, your words might be the light someone else needs. Like if you've ever felt invisible in the family you kept showing up for. Subscribe if you're ready for stories that don't just end, they liberate.